All right, welcome to Be the Market Expert, and welcome to day 14 of the government shutdown. And the reason why we're going to kick it off this way and actually talk about the government shutdown a little bit is because where we get most of our data from is from the government. And so when we look at the real estate news, we can pull some other information from third-party resources, which we're going to go to some of those websites to do that. But yet, with the government being shut down for 14 days now, what we're going to notice is that less and less information is going to be coming through. So, what I wanted to kick off the day with is I went to ChatGPT and wanted to go through and really just show this side of government shutdown. So I prefaced this whole thing with I said, "Hey, listen, I'm a real estate agent in Arvada, Colorado, and help us out." So firstly, it says the U.S. Federal government is in a partial shutdown as of the 1st. So that's why we're 14 days in, because Congress and the White House failed to agree on funding. Cool. We got opposing sides on this thing where we look at this and we can't get the things approved. It says over the past week, several developments escalated tensions. And it says the White House Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, issued a memo saying that the furloughed federal workers are not guaranteed back pay, challenging norms from past shutdowns. All right, cool. So let's talk about this. I think this is one of the most important things, maybe not one of the most important things, but we're going to talk about it anyway. And when we kind of look at where we have the current presidency, right, the President Trump in the White House, what we have is lots of shots fired across the bow, and this is what this looks like. This is a tactic that has been used for many years, and not a political statement. This is just true. This is just what it is. And if we were to look at this is where we were to look back at the Fed, right? The Fed was keeping the interest rates elevated and elevated and elevated, and we understand that the president does not have the ability to fire the sitting Fed president without just cause. And so what was he able to do? He was able to be very, very loud to try to force some hands. And that's what the current administration does. And so right now, the directive that has been put out there is saying, well, here's the deal. There's nothing that actually says that we have to go through and give back pay. There's nothing out there that says that we have to go and pay these employees. Just because we've done it in the past doesn't mean we have to do it now. There's no money. Right? Because this is what this thing is saying. It's saying, listen, we didn't get a budget approved. So we don't have money for these people that are not working. And this is where we are right now. And when we look at this, it says the IRS has also announced furloughs for about 34,000 employees, 46% of its workforce. And it's going to slow tax related services. So we looked at this a couple of weeks ago and we understand that if it's the IRS that's associated with the government's money, those employees still are funded. All right. So when it's cutting checks to the federal government, those employees are still working. They're allowed to open up their emails and they are allowed to get the government their money. But if it were to come down to pay, right, to where we're trying to figure out and get the W-2 employees to figure out what their dollars look like, those guys are not working. We'll talk about that here in a second. It says the administration reversed firing of over half of the laid off CDC personnel after backlash, citing a coding error. All right. The Smithsonian Museum and the National Zoo are closed now. And that was one of the conversations that we've had, right? Not necessarily over these two specifically, but over national parks. And would they be operational? And yes, they are. And with that being said, what they're going to see and what we've seen in the past is around trash, right? Trash cleanup and things like that. So the White House says it's preparing to ride out the shutdown and initiating reductions in force, more layoffs. And so we're going to see this. And I think we're absolutely going to see this. This is where this OMB comes in as well, as they're going through and they're going to just find more and more furloughed employees where if they believe that they have the right, they're going to get rid of the employees. Now, here's the thing. I think this is what we have to keep in mind is that we have seen this administration in the courts a lot. right? I don't think that doesn't come to a surprise to anybody. No one on here is like, really, is that really happening? I think every last one of you guys on this call has been like, yeah, they keep getting sued, and they do. And here's the deal. They're okay with it. The current administration is okay with getting sued because here's what happens. What happens is they make a stance, they put it in play, then someone raises their hand and says, no, that's illegal, we can't do that. And they put it into the court's hands. Well, by that time, depending on what was they're being sued over, it has either gone the full circuit at this point and they've achieved what they've wanted to do, or they've created enough noise around the issue that they want to create noise around, and now they have attention on it. And that has been their entire playbook currently. And so I want you guys all to see that. That's not a political statement. That's just real. Like, it doesn't matter if you're on the left, doesn't matter if you're on the right. That's what's happening. We are seeing the current administration going through and doing stuff that they believe that they are or not allowed to do. And they are letting the courts decide. And by the time that the courts have reached the decision after the lawsuit, it has either made enough national news to where some things are being talked about, and or they've reached their final destination of where they wanted to go. And so it doesn't matter if it gets reversed or not. So that's just kind of where we are with this government shutdown. So I said, well, what are these guys claiming? What are these guys blaming each other on right now? Like, we're on day 14 and we're still not the longest, right? We know that back in Trump's first administration that it actually went longer over the border wall, right? The border wall was the longest government shutdown we had, and it was like 34 days. We're in day 14. And so when we look at this, it says the Republicans, their position, they're saying they demand the government be reopened before negotiating on subsidies. And they're pushing for clear funding or clean funding bills. Well, the Democrats are saying, no. These guys are just using this to go through and to get this going, and they're not giving any guarantees. That's what their position is. And so what are they doing? So they're saying that the Republicans right now are going in and they are threatening more layoffs. If this thing keeps going, they're going to say, hey, listen, as this government shutdown keeps going forward, we're just going to find more waste. We're going to be looking, we're going to be combing through the books. And we're going to just keep laying off more and more employees that we actually don't believe match our agenda. And again, that's truly what it is. We're saying like, hey, this is not the agenda that the current administration is pushing forward. And what we're going to do is we are just going to go find more and more employees to fire that, right? Because it's on a furlough. Not only is it on a furlough, but there's no budget because the budget has not been approved. And so if the budget's not approved, then we can actually just start getting rid of these people permanently. And again, it could go to where we're going to see lawsuits later down the road. But then at that point, what does that really mean? So then it says the key friction points. So if we were to look at this thing, it says that they will not include extensions to the Affordable Care Act without subsidies, without concessions from the Democrats, also refusing to guarantee back pay without new funding legislation. So there's like, listen, we're not going to fund the furloughed employees because that actually won't be in the budget, which actually makes a whole lot of sense. Now, I'm not saying that it's right, wrong, indifferent. I am saying, though, that we have a government budget that now at this point does not have these current dollars over these last 14 days accounted for. So they're saying, well, hey, we actually got put in the budget as well. And then it says Republicans argue that Democrats won't pass a clear bill, and says Democrats are now countering, saying Republicans clear is that their tactic is to avoid commitments. Okay. And they're saying that the fairness of withholding back pay. And again, I actually think this is going to go the distance, guys. This is, I think, something that we're going to see to where this is going to go to the court system, to where this has just been the current administration's play from day one. And I don't think anyone's arguing that. So we go through and let's talk about the real estate impact. Firstly, it's saying could. FHA, VA, USDA, absolutely. I do believe that USDA is definitely going to be impacted more and more so. But they're saying that FHA and VA, because of the furloughed employees, it could go slower. The funding's still happening. They're just saying it's going to take a little bit of time. And it says even conventional loans, and this is the IRS piece, that if you need information from the IRS for your funding, well, there's not any employees. I mean, they are there, but what we're looking at, they're not the employees that are there for this reason. They're the ones that are cutting the checks for the government. So that's going to be slowed down. Your flood risk, and I know that David brought this up on Wednesday, right? So last Wednesday, if we were just kind of peek over this is your FEMA flood map. So I think that one of the big things that as we're going through, and let me just copy this. I know that you guys all got this email, but I know what happens to emails. When we look at this, I keep hitting chat and it just keeps disappearing. Oh, there it's got it. So we look at this. Here's your FEMA flood map to where we should grab that and maybe do something with it. Is that, guys, if you have a property coming online and or you have a client that is looking for a property that might be in a flood zone, well, just know that this is going to sit for a little bit longer because you cannot at this time get flood insurance. And this is why this is important, right? This is why we need to make sure that we're the most educated real estate agents on the planet, well, at least in, the Denver metro area. And when we go through and we're doing these different things, we're talking to our clients. We realize that there's some water or maybe a flood map that we need to be investigating. Well, your clients cannot get flood insurance right now. And so this is deeply impacted Florida, right? New Orleans, and New Orleans is already in trouble, right? New Orleans, if you were to look at their average days on market, I think that they are, close to a year at this point in a lot of these different areas, because firstly, they got crime, and secondly, they have weather. And so now you're talking that these impacts on the weather, and now they actually can't get insurance. Oh my God. Right? Like these is going to get more and more impacted as we go through this. It goes in, it says public economic data, employment, GDP, inflation. Yeah, like this is what I was just talking about. I can't get you guys a whole lot of data because everything's closed that gives us the data. And then it says buyer hesitation. It says Redfin went through and did a survey. 17% of Americans said they are delaying large purchases like homes or cars because of the uncertainty. Now, I think this is interesting. I was talking to Greg about this. I know Greg's on the call right now. I was talking to Greg about this. And I do think that you're going to see some people that are going to raise their hand. It says 17% of Americans. I would assume this is 17% of potential home buyers, or else that this number doesn't really mean a whole lot to us, but who knows? And when we're going through, I would say that the people that are slow and saying like, hey, I'm not going to make a purchase because I don't know what the government's going to do. We always know the government bounces back. Like in the grand scheme of things, how long can this thing really go on? Now, I get it. It's going to be bumpy, but if someone's gone through and you're telling me that they've been sitting on the sidelines for the last 3 years looking to purchase a house, and they finally made the decision that, yes, this is my year, and then they're going to go through and they're going to say, oh, but the government is slowed things down, but yet this home makes a whole lot of sense. I think that there's still buyers. But then again, we just need to make sure that we're going through and we're prefacing, hey, these are the different things that are happening. This is what could be slowing stuff down. So the longer the shutdown, the more buyer confidence is shaken. We get that. Some deals in process may fall apart due to financing delays or surprises underwriting. Rental assistance programs, community development, this with the work staff being slowed down, reduced. But here's the deal. We looked at this 2 weeks ago. HUD is still operational. This is not a program that is being taken away. Now, this is where this stuff, and this is why we would have to like dive in a little bit deeper. I believe if we were to click on this link, which I have not, that it's saying they're working with a reduced staff. Well, the reduced staff would be in certain segments that actually don't align with the current administration's agenda. HUD's not closed. The housing and urban development is not closed. Yet, if there is some kind of program that was put in place that the funding has run out because it was a special project, yeah, that project's gone. But the rest of the HUD piece is still moving. Affordable housing projects through relying on federal grants and oversight may be paused or see delays. And so, guys, when we're looking at this, we just see a lot of stuff that could happen, that might happen. The only big one that I truly see that's like, yes, is the floodplains, the FEMA. Going through and getting flood insurance. Like that's the big one that I'm looking at. I'm like, yeah. Or if you have federal employees, right? If you're working with federal employees, yes, absolutely. So let's look at this. So it says, what are the long-term risks? Credit strain on federal employees. Yeah, guys, these guys are not collecting checks right now. And they have some stuff that is going to be probably going to impact their lives. And it's interesting. I saw an article that read somewhere along the lines of like both parties have different ways that they want to make this thing happen to at least pay our military, and neither one of them can agree on it. We'll see what happens here. My bet will be that the administration pushes it forward and wait for the lawsuit. If I were a betting person, I would say that the article that I read was somewhere along the lines of the Trump administration wants to use tariff money to fund our military during this furlough. And my assumption would be that they're probably going to do it, and that there's probably going to be a lawsuit down the road saying that they weren't allowed to do it. But by the time that thing actually comes to a conclusion, it's already going to be done, and this thing will be over, and his agenda will be okay. And that's what I'm saying, guys. Like, this is what we're seeing, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. This is the playbook. Damage to local economies. Yeah. I think Washington, D.C., probably Colorado Springs, even though that they've already done some things with that as well. Like, these are the areas that have these larger demographics of federal employees that they're probably going to be hurt a little bit more. Longer term investor pullout. Yeah, we could see that. And then delays in permitting, environmental review, stuff like this. So what should we be doing? What should we be doing? And so firstly, guys, we need to be looking at our pipelines, right? You have FHA, VA, USDA buyers currently right now, especially if anyone has flood insurance that's going to be needed. This is going to be an issue. We could see appraisal and underwriting verification timelines go down just because of the IRS. So what are we doing with our contingencies? Are we pushing our contingencies out a little bit further? Are we putting clauses into our contracts, or even just be thinking about it to where we're saying, yes, we might need more time? Is the seller in agreement? Is the buyer in agreement? And setting the playground rules, setting the stage, setting the table up front. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you want to get this to the finish line? Yes, I do. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, do you want to get this to the finish line? Yes, I do. Awesome. Here are the things that we might run into during this time of the government shutdown. Are we all in agreement that we'd be willing to move things forward? Yes, absolutely. And we know that it has to be in writing. So we're going to go through, we're going to see what's going to happen, especially our military and our VA employees. They're going to be probably the most impacted here in Colorado, right? Specifically Colorado Springs, maybe some Commerce City, right? We're going to see some stuff. Communicate with clients early, right? And manage the expectations. And what might we see? Guys, if you have cash buyers, they're probably going to be in a pretty solid space right now, right? Like, if we're looking, like, these are the guys that don't need their IRS verification. They're not going to have to go through any other processes. Like, these are going to be our winners. Obviously, flood insurance, this is going to be a big deal. So again, you see, so there's a river, there's a creek, there's a floodplain. Open up your map, double check, put the property in. Make sure your buyers are informed. Make sure your seller understands what's going to happen. And then again, we're not going to talk about worst case scenario because we don't know what worst case. Right now, worst case scenario is like 34, 36 days because that's the ceiling that we have to operate off of right now. And we just don't know. We just don't know. And so we're just going to continue to monitor the situation and just kind of know that we need to be educators. Again, your FEMA map, let's do this. So some of the things I can look at. It says home builder unsold completed inventory sits at a 16-year high. Housing markets to find deals in. All right, cool. So let's look at this. So here we are. Here's your visual representation of this. Here you guys are right here. We're living in 2025. And we'd have to go all the way back to 2010. So we look at this, guys. This means that there's opportunity. I would be looking at this and I would say, am I in relationship with every home builder in the Denver metro area for them to send me every great deal that they have that I should be pushing out to my clients on a weekly, bi-weekly basis? Like, guys, this should be in everyone's playbook. Your playbook should be, who should I be in relationship with? Because these guys are not the March of Dimes. They are for-profit companies. They want to push this inventory. They do not want to sit on the inventory. It does them no good. They're not farming buyers for other properties. They're only farming buyers for their product. So they're not you. And so what are we doing to go through, get all the inventory, and do some campaigns? go tour the properties, go do some reels, fire it off to our clients. Guys, these guys are going to put out more and more incentives to get their properties sold. They are so fearful of 2008. They do not want to be holding the bag again. They do not. This is why this thing has lived so low, is because they were in this position where they remember this was scary. Then obviously time went on, the market got weird, and now they're sitting up, they're panicking. I'm telling you guys, they're panicking right now. What are we doing to get this information out to win for our clients? You go in and we're diving into this. Here is your inventory all enlarged. It says 15 states are back to above pre-pandemic 2019 housing levels. And if obviously I'm showing this to you, you know that we're one of them. So here we are. Let's enlarge this a little bit. This is 1 year shift. Okay, this is 2024, 2025 year over year data from September to September. Remember, we do everything rear view facing. We can't do October to October because the data ain't out yet. And with that being said, we're still having to pull most of this from Zillow and Realtor.com. So you guys are this square. Here's your geography lesson for the day. We are this square right here, 23% more inventory. We have 23% more inventory on the market. So when we're thinking about this, and we're thinking about our home builder friends, that they have way more competition than they've had in a very, very long time. Our buyers have opportunities, guys. There's a ton of opportunities for our buyers. And what are we doing to get this information and put it out? Now, if we go down a little bit more and we look at September 2019 to 2025. Now, here's the thing, guys. If you're new to this call and you're like, why are we going back to 2019? Like, what is the significance? Well, if we're going back to 2019, that's because 2019 is the last normal market that we had. 2020, global pandemic. 2021, money was free. Right? 2022, interest rates started going up and they went up very, very quickly halfway through the year. 2024 and 2025, we've had elevated interest rates, and now we have a government shutdown. And so we look at 2019 data to say, okay, that was a normal market. So where do we compare today versus the last normal market that we had? And guys, we have, let's round up, let's call it 30%. We have 30% more inventory on our shelves, on the MLS currently versus what we had back then. Now, here's the thing that we need to think about. We also have a bigger population. Our population isn't necessarily declining, and yet we have way more inventory. So for a seller, there's going to be some motivations. They're going to have to like kick in. They're going to have to make some decisions. But as the buyer, we need to be going through, we need to be having the conversations with our people to figure out what is the most important thing to them and move forward. We'll look at the interest rates and we'll talk about timing the market, because timing the market's crazy, right? If we were to look at the interest rates, we can see that we dipped down, and there's probably some people who are like, I'm going to hold out a little bit longer. And then they went up. And not only did they go up, but then we hit a government shutdown. And so it's like, this is why when we look at these things and we're being the real estate economists of choice, we are being that voice of reason for the people in our ecosystems, that we're like, here are all the data points that I can point to that says timing the market's stupid and that we shouldn't do this, right? We can go and we can say, yeah, there's a government shutdown, which it impacts a lot of stuff. Interest rates kind of fluctuate back and forth, right? We have some things that we can point to, but 29% more inventory. And here's just your dot map of that. And here we are, we're right here. And so we do have more inventory right now than we've had in quite some time. And then if we look at this, here it is just in numbers. So here you are, number 3, not where we want to be. This is not the list of numbers that we want to be in. And this is going to be sorted by compared to 2019. All right, so this is how this is sorted right here. This is verse 2019. And if we were to go through here, let's just go through. We got 24,000, 22, 23. Keep in mind the population is going up, but again, we have a cost of money because what else has happened? Prices have gone up. Prices have gone up, interest rates are up, so now we're seeing more inventory sit. We get into here, 2021. So remember, 2021 interest rates, super low. Homes are flying off the shelf, right? The neighbors are saying, oh yeah, the neighbor's house, it lasted 1 day on the market. Less than 12,000 homes. 31,000 homes currently on the market in Colorado, which again, 29% increase. Your 2-year change, 71% more homes over the 2-year change, and 23% year over year, guys. So these are numbers that tell me that we have opportunity. All right. So we have some opportunity to get in front of our people, especially specifically our buyers. And what we should also be doing is making sure that we're talking to our sellers. We were in our I think it was our leadership meeting the other day. It could have been an investor meeting. I don't remember what meeting it was. So many great meetings yesterday. And with that being said, one of the conversations that is stemming from the region, from the Colorado leadership team from the region, is that we need to be making sure that our agents understand the pricing conversations, right? Most real estate agents in the nation have not gone through a buyer's market. Right? When we're thinking about this and we think about like the real last buyer's market that we had, we're talking north of 10 years ago. And so when we're talking about these different things, like most real estate agents have not lived through a buyer's market. And so what does that mean is we have to get real comfortable having uncomfortable conversations with our clients, our sellers. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I understand that the house across the street sold for $600,000 back in 2021. That's simply not the market that we're in right now. So are you interested in having the home sit on the market for as long as possible, or are you looking to get your home sold? Right? Like these are the conversations that we need to be having with our people. We need to be educated. We need to be going through and prepare these CMAs and show days on market. I remember getting into the business and like you would actually have to prove to the seller, this is how long the homes that I list sit on the market. Now, we haven't lived in a market like that in quite some time, to where you're like, yeah, my average days on market is 7. And guys, we might be going back to those days to where you're competing for a listing and they're asking you to show your data. And when we're going through and we're doing these different things, this is very important. We need to be going through and having conversations and saying like, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I get this. I get the Zillow says your home is worth X, or your tax assessment says your home is worth Y. And yet, I believe that if we put your home on the market for X amount of dollars, we're going to get the most amount of eyes on it, and we're going to get you sold in a timely manner. And these are the conversations we need to be having because of this, guys. We have a lot more inventory, 31,000 homes on the market currently. So let's go and let's look at Housing Wire, right? We talked about Housing Wire. Logan Motoshami, the lead analyst for Housing Wire, and it says, did the housing inventory peak in August this year? And it says inventory growth slowed before August, rates went down, and now seasonality is knocking at the door. Now, this is what's interesting, right? So when we talk about seasonality, we would say that real estate agents go to sleep as jack-o'-lanterns, wake up as Easter bunnies, historically speaking, and yet we're in a weird market. And again, we're not in 2019 or before, and so we haven't had a normal market in quite some time. So when we're talking about this, what we need to be thinking about is homes. And what homes are doing right now is the homes are sitting a little bit longer. We're seeing homes sit longer, and some of the sellers are like, I'm not willing to budge, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. Has anybody been watching homes that have been sitting on the market for 1 month, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and not really taking any price decreases, then it sells? And I would say that the reason for that is that the pool of buyers at the time, they didn't have the right buyer. But then the right buyer came online, the home met their criteria, and they sold it. And yet these are the conversations as the real estate becomes a choice we need to be having on the front end. I was having this conversation with Eric back at the Rocky Mountain Summit. And the conversation was, shouldn't it be the seller's choice? And absolutely, it should be the seller's choice. And when we're looking at it at the seller's choice, we also need to be making sure that we are educating them as best as we can, right? To where we're saying like, hey, what is the importance of you selling your home? Like, why did you call me? Why did you call me to sell your house? And if it was because they have a home that they need to be to in a month, well, then we might need to be a little bit more aggressive with our marketing strategy as far as dollars. But if they're saying, I don't need to sell this house, I want to, I don't need to, well, then we might need to push back a little bit more than so. Then why aren't we just renting it out? But the second conversation is, well, at what time? What is the timeline to say that this is now an issue to where I got to get this sold because I don't like making 2 mortgage payments? And they say, oh, I can last 6 months. Okay, well, we got to figure out, like, is there a 6 month strategy? Because this is what we're seeing right now, is we're seeing more and more buyers come online. And while these homes that maybe sat for a little bit longer, some of them are being taken down. So let's go through and let's look at your inventory. Guys, we got 17% more inventory nationally right now than we did last year. But if we looked at Colorado, remember, we were at this 30%. So we have 30% more homes in Colorado for sale. And yet, nationally speaking, there's 17% more inventory. And again, we're going to cross this 2019 line, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. We just need interest rates to come down. If we could keep this inventory line higher and interest rates lower, guys, we're going to be in the perfect market, right? To where both parties are going to come to the table and actually agree to some things, which would be pretty cool. So we look at this thing, and here we are, 2025. We're seeing a little bit of a peak, right? So it just popped up a little bit right here. So we do have more inventory, not much more, right? We're talking 2,000 more homes right now than we did in 2024. We go in, we're just looking at your price cut percentage. Now, here's the deal. This is where this is going to get weird. And the reason why I say it's going to get weird is because we do not know what January 1st, 2026 is going to look like. This is what it has looked like in the past, but I can't give you any numbers off of this. If you guys are farming expired listings and you're looking at the MLS on January 1st, 2026, you're going to see a lot of inventory come back onto the market as expired, or actually come off the market as expired. So what we might start to see is one of two different things. We're going to see some people actually start getting aggressive in their pricing strategies and start taking the price decreases, or these homes are going to expire over the next 3 months. They're going to fall off the board. And then a lot of them might come back on come January, maybe more into the spring market. All right. So if I was an agent, I was saying, okay, so we're seeing a lot of price decreases nationwide. We're seeing 41%. We know historically speaking, 1/3 of all homes take a price increase or a decrease. And yet we're seeing 41%, almost half at this point. What would I be doing? Well, I might be going and making a strategy saying, all right, maybe my first quarter game plan is to go farm some expired listings in Arvada, Westminster, Broomfield, insert whatever here. Maybe it's just going to be a couple of neighborhoods I'm going to pick. I'm going to start planning my marketing strategy to go drop off some stuff for these people. Like, hey, I know that you didn't have the right real estate agent to begin with, and wanted to see what I can do to help you sell your house in the future. Now, I'm probably not going to be that direct with it, but yet that's kind of the route we're going to go, right? Be thinking about this, guys. December 31st is when we historically see a lot of listings end. And then January 1, you're going to wake up like Christmas morning, and there's going to be a bunch of expired listings on the MLS. So be thinking about that. That's going to be one of your strategies. I'm not going to talk about the year yield or the spread. Purchase application data took a little bit of a dip. And so we're seeing this, but when I say it's a dip versus 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. It's not a dip versus last year. We're still significantly higher than what we were. Now, this is what's going to get interesting. Again, we don't have a normal market. We're in a government shutdown right now. All right, so we're in this government shutdown. What's going to be interesting is if we follow this trend line back down and then does it spike back up? Or if we fall out of the government shutdown, does it start spiking back up again? And we don't know. We don't know what this is going to look like. Again, this would be some crystal balls, and we just don't have any available right now. And so what we're going to go through, and what we do need to understand, though, is this is still elevated. This is still well elevated. There are still buyers out there that are interested in purchasing real estate. It's your job to go find them motivated. All right. That's our only job, is to go out there and find the people that are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, and figure out how we can be the real estate economist of choice to help them. Your pending sales, guys, we're pretty flat, right? If we were to look at this thing, it's just trending in the same direction. Not much crazy heading there, but here we go. Again, this is Friday, right? We look at this as rear view facing data, but this is Friday. It says, this is talking about this week, the week that we were in. Things could get really intense next week, this week, if the situation regarding China tariffs continues to escalate. So I don't know if anyone watched this, but the tariffs that they're talking about are, China came out and said, hey, rare earth metals, we're going to put some restrictions on sending those out, right? Because keep in mind, the US, we're going to go through and we're going to start manufacturing, doing some of our own stuff. And a lot of that stuff that we need has some rare earth metals. And China came out and said, hey, we're going to actually start limiting. We're going to start limiting the export of our rare earth metals. So what did our administration come out and do? They said, awesome, tariffs. Right? Like this is just what happens. And we're going to see what this does. But like, this is what they were talking about with China right now. And so we'll see kind of how this thing plays out. Who knows? Who knows? It says, as both the stock market and bond market are experiencing significant fluctuations, they go up one day, they go down. That's just kind of where we're living right now. It says, usually we would have several economic reports this week. However, government shutdown, right? Whereas like all this information comes from the government. This is why like it's also interesting when we look at like employment numbers. Well, employment numbers are coming from the government as well. So depending on whatever narrative, it could, be skewed. And it says, until the government shutdown is resolved, we won't have much economic data, but we might see some significant market drama ahead, and we will. It says, additionally, many Federal Reserve members, including Fed Chair Powell, will speak in the coming weeks. And it says, buckle up. This could be a week where headlines take a wild turn. All right, guys. So when we're looking at this, we just don't know. We don't know. All we can do is have the conversations, making sure that we're educating our people. But let's look at interest rates. So this is September 10th through October 10th. All right. We could move it a little bit if we want. Let's see what we can do. Let's move it to yesterday. Go to today. Will you allow me to do it to today? There it is. That went to October 13th. That was silly. I want this. Here's your 1st through the 14th. So this is government shutdown to, in all reality, it's probably yesterday. I doubt it's giving us today. Yeah, this is going to the 10th. All right. So again, reports are down, but this is what this looks like. So over the last 10 days, excluding the last 4, this is kind of where our interest rates are living. But if we were looking at just like 1 month, and again, it's going to kick back to the 10th. Guys, they've gone up a little bit, right? So we started here, and here they are. Like it's kind of gone down and then fluctuated back up and then kind of went flat. I get that it's moving a little bit right here. This is why the conversation about timing the market, right? We need to be figuring out like what the motivation levels are. And what I want you guys to hear from this is this. None of us on this phone are good enough to make someone go spend $600,000 on a house. And quite frankly, I don't know if you even want to be, right? I don't know if you want to be the person that's like going and being a used car salesman, because that's where the general public thinks we are anyway, and pushing someone into buying a home. But yet, if we're going down, we're having a conversation with them, we're being people, we're being humans, which I know is like hard conversation since 2020, right? We all forgot how to talk to people. And yet we're going through, we're having these conversations and we say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I know that you reached out. What is your timeline? What is important about that timeline to you? Right? They go through and they say, you know what? We need to purchase a home. And you say, awesome. What's important about that? You say, well, we need to purchase a home because we're expecting our first child. Well, okay. Well, what do you want that timeline to look like? Well, we want to be in that home in the next 3 months. Okay. What's important about being in your home in the next 3 months? And they're like, well, month 4, the baby's going to be here. Well, okay, now we have a timeline. We know what their motivations are, and we can help them forward. Mr. and Mrs. Seller call you, and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, why did you call me today? They said, I'm looking to sell our house. Awesome. What is your timeline? Well, we want to be sold in the next 4 months. And you say, awesome, where are you going? And they say, we're going to Nebraska. You're like, gross. But what's important about being in Nebraska? And they said, well, our kids live there. Okay, well, once if we can't get the home sold in 4 months, right, guys? And we go through and we have these conversations with them. This is our job. Our job's not to force someone to buy. Our job's not to force somebody to sell. Our job is to figure out how to get people what they want. They've told you. You've done the buyer interview. You've done the seller interview. They've told you their motivations. They told you their timeline. They told you what's important about that to them. Now it's our job to get them there and to be their pulse check when there's some wavering. We say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you told me you were looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in this neighborhood for this price point. I believe that we found it. What is happening right now to where you don't want to pull the trigger? Well, I just don't know if it's the right house. But when we sat down, you told me X, Y, Z were the things you were looking for. House has X, Y, Z. Should we be refining our search? And guys, that's what they're paying us for, just to have these conversations with them. And so again, guys, I think that the big thing as we're going through, just as government shutdown, we don't know what it's going to look like. We do know it's scaring some people. I don't know if there's a whole lot to be scared about just quite yet. And so all we can do is educate the people that are in our ecosystem and help them with their motivations.